What if a disaster on railroads doesn't start with a dramatic failure, but with something almost laughably small? An unread signal, a mismatched coupler, a wrong turn in a map, a radio slip that sounds harmless. In this countdown, I want you to watch 5 moments where minor details weren't minor at all. They were the first dominoes. Picture the railroad like a living diagram. A train comes toward a signal you've basically seen 100 times and nothing looks dramatic. Then the moment hangs and someone says, "It wasn't the whole system. It was one small detail." Here's the theme of today's video. Top 5 railway disasters that started with something minor on paper, but became deadly because the system is unforgiving when communication, compatibility, or navigation gets messy. Watch for one recurring idea. The disaster usually isn't just one mistake. It's a mismatch between what people think is happening and what the rail system is actually doing. Once that gap shows up, speed and distance start doing their own math. The train isn't negotiating, it's continuing. So the real danger is when the right correction doesn't arrive in time or doesn't land in the right place. All right, carry that idea forward. Number 10. Number 10 is about a signal that wasn't wrong, it was understood wrong. Picture a busy line where trains move like clockwork. Green means go, red means stop, and the in-between meanings have their own rules. The weird part is that sometimes the signal isn't malfunctioning or misplaced. It's the interpretation that slips. In real events, the problem often isn't a broken machine. It's human pattern matching. An operator expects the usual conditions, familiar routes, familiar spacing. Then an edge case shows up. A temporary operating situation, a signal that's placed a bit differently, and suddenly it looks familiar until you're too close to change what you do. So the minor detail can be brutal because a signal can be misread in a fraction of a second, especially with glare, weather, or distraction. On a railroad, you don't get the forgiving timing you might get in a car. Once the train is committed to a path, the system has to react quickly enough and correctly enough. The correction is usually layered. Automatic train protection can intervene when train behavior doesn't match what the signal indicates. Dispatching and temporary condition communication improve, and signal design evolves to give clearer cues that are harder to misread. Now, why is this near the bottom of the countdown? Even when a misread happens, there are often multiple chances to stop the chain if procedures are followed and the system stays consistent. But now number 9 gets more about interfaces, not just interpretation. It's about whether physical parts match what everyone thinks is connected. Number 9. When the train doesn't couple the way you think. Couplers feel simple, but coupling isn't one moment where two pieces touch. It's a process involving timing, alignment, and compatibility. Here's the struggle. A coupler can lock incorrectly, or it can look secured from the outside while not being secure in function. Or the equipment might be mismatched even if everything appears to be in place. That's the scary part. The problem can be invisible until the train starts doing real work. Then physics shows up. When you're moving, forces don't wait. If two cars aren't properly connected, slack can stretch, then tension can snap into a sudden jolt. That jolt can throw off braking behavior too, because the train stops acting like one controlled system. And here comes the second minor detail. Someone assumes the coupling is fine because it looks fine. The fix can't be just make it look connected. It has to be verified through procedure, training, and sometimes technology. Compatibility isn't a goal, it's a measurable requirement enforced before motion. So this entry is like a cousin to the signal story. Rail systems depend on shared expectations. When connected is assumed instead of confirmed, the rest becomes physics. Now we add a new ingredient. Number 8 is where a small navigation issue collides with the reality of routing and schedules. Number 8. The misread map that turned a route into a trap. On paper, rail routes can seem tidy. On the ground, they're layered with local rules. which siding you're using, switch positions, temporary restrictions, dispatch instructions that can change fast. This minor detail isn't always ignorance. Sometimes it's a difference between "I know the area" and "I know the exact configuration right now." A switch might be lined differently, a track might be out of service, a designation might sound familiar but mean something else in that exact operating context. So the struggle becomes translation. Crews receive an order, then reference it against a mental picture or a diagram that doesn't match the current status. The info can be almost right, but missing the one detail that matters for safe movement. And when the map is wrong or outdated, the risk escalates quickly because trains don't stop at the end of a sentence. The breakthrough is better documentation and real-time clarity, communication protocols, clearer labeling of track states, stronger verification right when movement begins. The payoff is synchronization with reality. The map has to match the track. Okay, signals misread, couplers assumed, navigation confusion. Now let's raise the stakes. Number 7 is about a safety idea that depended on people adjusting, an automation that met an old habit. Number 7. When automation meets an old habit. Railroads use technology to reduce workload and improve consistency, but technology doesn't erase human habits. It changes the workflow. If people don't adapt, a minor detail can survive in a new form. Here's what it looks like. An operator expects a certain behavior from the system because that's what it usually does. In an edge case, the system reacts differently, or it requires a confirmation step people gloss over. The minor detail might be a status indicator, a confirmation prompt, or a misunderstood system mode. So the correction tends to be training, updated procedures, and design changes. If a mode change matters, it shouldn't be subtle. If confirmation is required, the workflow should make it hard to skip. The broader pattern is reducing the chance that someone can accidentally act on assumptions. Now we're halfway through the countdown and the arc feels clear. Signals misread, couplers assumed, maps out of sync, automation misunderstood, small triggers one by one. But now it gets scarier when multiple small issues overlap. Number 6 and number 5 show how a chain forms. Number 6, 2 mistakes that didn't cancel out. Sometimes the worst events happen not from one error but from how errors stack. You can get a minor communication slip, then a procedural gap, then a moment where someone thinks, "It can't be that bad." In plain terms, multiple people and systems have to agree on what's happening right now. If that agreement is fuzzy, everyone starts working from incomplete data. The correction is systemic, tightening interlocks, improving communication standards, and reducing how often critical decisions depend on memory or interpretation.